What if I told you that right now, while you are sitting in your student accommodation paying rent every single month, there are people your age, students just like you, who are quietly building property portfolios in the UK and creating income streams that will outlast their degrees by decades? And what if I told you that most of them started with less money than you think, that the deals they found are still out there, and that nobody is talking about this in the way that actually makes sense for international students and young people living in the UK right now? That changes today. Welcome. My name is from Nestpath UK, and this channel exists for one reason: to give you real, honest, practical information about property in the UK that actually applies to your life. Not theory, not generic advice aimed at wealthy investors, real strategies for real people. And today's video is one of the most important ones I have ever made, so I need you to stay with me all the way to the end. Because the last section of this video contains the one piece of information that most people in your position never hear, and it could completely change the financial decisions you make while you are still a student in this country. Let's get into it. First, I want to address the thought that just went through your head. You're a student. You probably don't have a massive amount of savings. You might be on a student visa. You're paying tuition fees, rent, food, transport, and someone is now telling you to think about buying property? It sounds impossible. It sounds like advice meant for someone else, someone older, someone richer, someone more settled. But here's what I've learned, spending years researching the UK property market and watching how ordinary people, including students and young migrants, have found ways into it. The biggest barrier is almost never money. The biggest barrier is information. People don't invest in UK property because they don't know where to look, they don't understand how the system works, and they've never been shown a realistic pathway in. Today I'm going to show you that pathway, step by step, in plain English. Let's start with something that might surprise you. The UK property market, despite everything you hear in the news about high prices in London and the South East, is not one market. It is dozens of markets happening simultaneously across the country, and some of those markets are priced at levels that would genuinely shock you if you've only ever looked at London numbers. There are cities in the north of England, places like Bradford, Hull, Sunderland, Stoke-on-Trent, parts of Liverpool and Manchester, where you can find properties listed for under £60,000. Some under 40,000. Now, I'm not saying those properties are ready to move into immediately, and I'm not saying there are no complications. But the price point is real, the opportunity is real, and for someone thinking about long-term financial strategy, these numbers open doors that most people assume are permanently closed. Now let me tell you about a concept that changes the way you look at all of this. It's called rental yield. And this is where students and young people in the UK actually have a hidden advantage that almost nobody talks about. Rental yield is simply the annual rental income a property generates expressed as a percentage of its purchase price. So if you buy a property for £50,000 and it rents for £500 a month, that's £6,000 a year, your rental yield is 12%. That is an extraordinary return. Compare that to a savings account giving you 2 or 3% interest, and you start to understand why people who understand property think so differently about money than people who don't. Here's the thing about those northern cities I just mentioned. Not only are purchase prices lower, rental yields are often significantly higher than in London or the South East. Why? Because people still need to rent in those cities. Students still need accommodation. Young professionals still need flats. But because property values are lower, the math works out much more favorably for the investor. This is why savvy property people talk about the north of England the way food people talk about a hidden restaurant that hasn't been discovered yet. The value is there. You just have to know where to look. And this is exactly what Nestpath UK exists to help you understand. Now let's talk about something even more specific to your situation as a student. Because I know your first question is going to be, okay, this sounds interesting, but how does someone in my position actually get started? What are the real options? Let me give you several pathways, and I want you to listen to all of them before you decide which one feels relevant to you. because your situation is unique and different paths will make sense for different people. The first pathway is the educational pathway, and this costs you nothing except time. Before you can make any smart property decision, you need to understand the basics of how the UK property market works. How does conveyancing work? What are stamp duty land tax rules? And how do the first-time buyer exemptions apply? What is the difference between freehold and leasehold, and why does it matter enormously when you're buying certain types of property? What are the rules around mortgages for people on visas? These are not complicated things once someone explains them clearly, but most people never bother to learn them, and that ignorance is expensive. Spend the next 30 days genuinely educating yourself about UK property fundamentals. Read, watch, research. Follow channels like this one. Build your foundation. The second pathway is the observation pathway. This is something you can start doing today regardless of your financial situation. Start tracking property listings in 2 or 3 specific areas of the UK. Not everywhere. Pick your areas and watch them consistently. Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market. Watch what properties come on at. Watch what they eventually sell for. Notice which ones sit on the market for a long time and why. Notice the price reductions. Notice the patterns. After 3 to 6 months of consistent observation, you will have developed an intuition for value in those specific markets that most casual buyers never develop. You will start to see deals before other people do. That observation is worth more than any course you could pay for. The third pathway, and this is where it starts to get really interesting, is the network pathway. Property investment in the UK is a relationship business. The best deals very often never make it to the public listings. They are shared between people who know each other: investors, estate agents, developers, landlords who want a quick and quiet sale. And the way you get access to that network is by showing up consistently. Go to local property networking events. There are free and low-cost property meetups happening in almost every major UK city every single month. Join online communities, introduce yourself, ask questions, be genuinely curious. People in the property world love to talk about what they do, and if you show up as someone who is serious about learning, you will be amazed at the doors that open. Now let's talk about the money side, because I know that's what you're really thinking about. And I want to be completely honest with you here, because this channel, NestPath UK, is built on honesty. If you are an international student on a student visa with no UK credit history and limited savings, getting a residential mortgage in your name right now is going to be extremely difficult. Let's not pretend otherwise. UK mortgage lenders have specific requirements around visa types, residency, income, and credit history, and most international students don't meet all of those requirements simultaneously. That is the honest truth. But here is the thing. That doesn't mean the door is closed. It means the door requires a different key. One of those keys is called joint investment. This is where you partner with someone who does have the financial profile to secure a mortgage. A family member, a friend, a parent back home who may be able to provide funds, and you structure an arrangement together. This requires proper legal documentation and proper advice, but it is done all the time, and it is a completely legitimate way to get exposure to UK property while your own financial profile is still being built. Another key is called the buy-to-let mortgage, and while this also has requirements, the criteria are sometimes different from residential mortgages, and in some cases more accessible depending on your specific circumstances. A specialist mortgage broker, not a high street bank, but someone who specifically works with complex cases, including visa holders and international buyers, can give you a much clearer picture of what is actually possible for you right now versus what you might assume is impossible. A third key, and this is one that very few people consider, is investing from your home country. If your family has capital back home that they would be willing to invest, UK property can be purchased in cash by overseas buyers without the same visa and mortgage restrictions that apply to UK-based buyers. The regulations around this vary, and there are tax implications that need to be understood properly, but the pathway exists, And for students whose families are thinking about how to protect and grow their money internationally, UK property, even at current prices, remains one of the most stable and recognized asset classes in the world. Let me tell you something that I find genuinely fascinating about the student experience in the UK and how it connects to property. Most students, when they arrive in a UK city, spend their first year figuring out where things are, where to eat, where to shop, which areas feel safe, which areas are up and coming, which neighborhoods young people are moving into. They develop a ground-level knowledge of their city that takes years for outside investors to develop. That local knowledge is genuinely valuable in property. Knowing that a particular street in your university city is being renovated. Knowing that a new tram line is coming that will make a previously inconvenient area suddenly very accessible. Knowing that a neighborhood that feels rough right now has a brand new coffee shop and a gallery opening. Early signs of gentrification that will push property values up in the next 3 to 5 years. Students notice these things. Students live in these cities. That on-the-ground intelligence is an asset that professional investors pay consultants to gather, and you have it for free just by being there. Now I want to talk about something called the HMO model, because this is one of the strategies most relevant to students, both as a housing option and as a future investment concept. HMO stands for House in Multiple Occupation. It's essentially a property where multiple tenants rent individual rooms and share communal spaces like kitchens and bathrooms. Student housing works largely on this model. And from an investor's perspective, HMOs can generate significantly higher rental income than single-let properties because you are collecting rent from multiple tenants rather than one household. The regulations around HMOs are more complex than standard buy-to-let. You need specific licenses, you have to meet certain room size and safety standards, and management is more intensive. But the returns can be substantially higher. And as someone who has lived in student accommodation and understands exactly what tenants in that market want and need, you have an instinctive understanding of this product that a distant investor simply doesn't have. I want to take a moment to talk about mindset, because I think this matters as much as the practical information. There is a story that many young people, especially those who have moved to a new country to study, tell themselves about property. The story goes, property is for settled people. Property is for people who have been here longer. Property is for people who earn more, who have connections, who understand the system. I am just passing through. I will worry about this later. And I understand why that story exists. It feels true. It feels safe. But I want to challenge it gently, because the cost of waiting is real. Every year, you wait to start understanding and engaging with property as a concept. Prices in certain markets move. Opportunities that existed close. The person who started educating themselves about UK property at 22 has a completely different set of options at 27 than the person who started at 27. You don't have to buy something today. You don't have to have everything figured out, but you do have to start learning, start watching. Start building your network. Start understanding your own financial picture and what it will take to move it in the right direction. That starting, that decision to take this seriously, even while you're still a student, that is the thing that separates people who build wealth from people who spend their whole lives wishing they had. This is what NestPath UK is here for. Not to sell you something, not to promise you overnight results, but to walk alongside you as you build the knowledge and the network and the confidence to make smart decisions about property in the UK and beyond. Let me leave you with this. Somewhere in the UK right now, there is a property sitting on a listing website that nobody is clicking on. Maybe the photos are bad. Maybe the listing description is confusing. Maybe it's in a postcode that most London-focused investors immediately dismiss. But it has a yield that would make a seasoned investor's eyes light up, and it's priced at a level that someone with the right information and the right connections could access. That deal exists today. Another one will exist tomorrow, and the week after that. The question is not whether affordable, high-value UK property deals exist. They absolutely do. The question is whether you are going to be the person who learns how to find them. I really hope this video has given you something useful today. A new way of seeing your situation, a new set of questions to ask, a sense that this world is more accessible than you thought. If it did, please hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this video reach other students and young people who need exactly this information. Leave me a comment below and tell me, where in the UK are you studying right now, and have you ever thought seriously about property investment? I want to know where you are in your journey because your comments help me understand what to cover next. Every single comment gets read on this channel. And if you are not yet subscribed to NestPath UK, please do it right now. This channel is growing fast because we cover property in a way that actually makes sense for people like you. International students, young migrants, first-time investors, people who are serious about building something real. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and you will never miss a video. Share this with a friend who is studying in the UK. Because if this information could change your perspective, it could change theirs too. This is NestPath UK, and I will see you in the next one.